The Exterminators have been captured by Nastier. The power-hungry demon has successfully used 10 mutant babies to create a spell in order to open, and keep open, a portal to Limbo. He has done this by fooling Illyana Rasputin, known as Magic of the New Mutants, or now known as Darkchild to the demons, into opening the portal from Limbo to Earth. Now, an army of demons pour from the pentagram in the sky. The smell of sulfur escorts them, adding a new dimension to the oppressive heat that Manhattan has already been suffering through. Airborne goblins take to the sky, their leathery wings beating like bat wings. Hundreds more just fall to the ground and then get up, their clawed or hooved feet smacking and clacking against the concrete. The demons come in all shapes and sizes, and they aren't alone. The Exterminators, who are being held in a ball of sorcerous energy, watch as the New Mutants fall as well. But initially, upon their first viewing, they don't think that they're humans. Sunspot is in his energy-cloaked form, making him all black, with crackling spots appearing and vanishing in the air around him. And, Illyana looks like a demon right now. Nastier corrects their misconception, though. They are humans. Mutants, actually. They're here because he wants them here. Crotus pipes up, reminding his master that he promised that he could eat Artie and Leech for his good service. Oh, right. Nastier scoops up the kids and plops them at Crotus's feet. Do your thing, man. But Takeshi zooms forward on his wheelchair, manifesting an armored arm to punch the demon. Then he rushes to the magic computer. If he made it, then he can also destroy it. But Nastier snatches him up in one hand. He needs that machine for a while yet. So he dumps Takeshi with Crotus, ordering the goblin to keep an eye on the boy. Once their work is done, then he can eat the kids. The big boss then flies off to confront Illyana, recreating the scene that we already saw at the end of New Mutants issue 71. Crotus sums up what is going on through conversation with the Exterminators for us, completely confident in his master's skill and abilities. They try to keep him talking, but Crotus manages to figure out that they are trying to distract him, and he turns around, preventing Takeshi from sabotaging the spell checker. Takeshi makes a big show of being caught. Oh no, you caught me! It would have worked too if Leech and Artie hadn't messed things up. He pushes the little kids away, shoving them toward the computer. That thing barely works, he says. It needs every plug in the right socket. If even one is pulled out, the whole thing will stop working. I hope no one pulls a plug. Leech gets the hint. He tells Artie to pull some plugs, and they do. The portal below the pentagram warps and wobbles and collapses. The force field holding the Exterminator pops, freeing them. Crotus dives under the computer, grabs at the power cables, and aligns them with the socket. The technology does burn Crotus's hand, and Takeshi shouts for him to stop. The feedback from touching it alone could hurt him. But Crotus is more scared of his Mothda. Skids dives onto him, trying to stop him, or protect him, maybe. But he does plug them back in, and an explosion of energy burns him alive. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown episode 24.4 of the X-Men's Inferno crossover, Deals with the Devil. Crotus's explosion throws Skids back, and almost off of the building. Rusty manages to catch her, but she's distraught over failing to save Crotus. Rusty adds insult to injury by adding that the portal has stabilized again. What are they going to do about it now? Skids scans the area, and she notices that Nastier is exchanging body blows with Sim. They don't recognize the purple demon, of course, but this is something that'll get picked up on the next issue of New Mutants, so we're establishing a timeline. As the pair are fighting, though, Nastier notices that the portal flickered in the sky above. He orders his army to defend the computer, and demons swarm the rooftop and the Exterminators. The teens had been planning to attack and destroy the computer again, but with the demon hordes swarming them, they can't even see 5 inches in front of their face. They are fighting back, and they're managing to stay alive, but they aren't stopping the actual danger here. Thankfully, Takeshi has been hard at work. Using the condenser on the roof, Takeshi grows 6 small planes around them all. He uses Boom Boom's time bombs as fuel, and their plan is to save the babies. Removing the babies from the planogram should disrupt the spell and stop it all, right? As they zoom away into the sky, a charred and crispy Crotus stands up. Holy sh...
No swearing.
Man, I thought you were dead. He orders the other goblins to follow the mutants, but they balk at his command. They were ordered to protect the computer, not chase the humans. He grabs the protesting demon's throat. Then you can tell the Master that you let them escape. This wins over the horde, and they all take to the air. Without any wings of his own, Crotus actually surfs on the back of one of the goblins. I love it. This guy's so stupid and ridiculous, nothing can stop him. When Crotus jumps off of the other goblin's back, he lands on Takeshi's ship, shattering the windshield. He pulls Takeshi from the craft, but they don't crash. Instead, all of the planes separate, just like Takeshi designed them. He shouts this to the X-Terminators as Crotus pulls him from his ship, and they jump back to the rooftop. The X-Terminators struggle to figure out their ship's controls for a few minutes, but they manage it. They do find a fire button as well so that they can attack, but Tabby and Richter just ditch their canopies altogether and use their powers instead. They're eager to go save Taki, but Skids is focused on saving the babies. She reaches out for the nearest one, struggling to control her powers. Her force field is keeping her safe from the mystical energy that surrounds it, but it also means that her grip on the baby is extremely loose. It is a frictionless field, after all. So as she grabs the baby, a demon spooks her from behind, and the baby slips from her hands like a wet bar of soap. Leech and Artie catch the baby, but Skids had pulled her field in as close as she could in order to try to grab it, which left her vulnerable. A goblin wraps its hands around her throat, beginning to choke her. Rusty does a flyby, and he blasts fire at the monster, causing it to drop Skids. He catches her now, but now Rusty is left open. Another demon tears at the back of his neck. Rusty keeps his grip, and he manages to keep Skids in his plane, but he is hurting. Thankfully, Cannonball of the New Mutants blasts into the scene and smashes the goblin back. He says that they figured these folks must be up to something good because the goblins are going wild trying to stop them. Warlock has shifted his body into a rocketing glider shape, allowing the other mutants to stand on him and fight goblins at the same time. They figure out that they need to save the babies, and so they join in the Exterminators' efforts. Mirage jumps into Rusty's plane, since he is still reeling from the attack on him, and Skids is still unconscious. Meanwhile, another one of the planes is spiraling out of control, and honestly, I'm surprised it hasn't crashed yet at this point, but whatever. Its spiraling allows Warlock to head that way. Sunspot grabs the tail of the craft, which is Takeshi's plane, allowing him and Gossamer to climb inside of it. The two groups then start to interact with each other, basically comparing notes on what's been going on. Both sides thought that they were the cause of all this. The Exterminators failed to stop the baby kidnappings, and the New Mutants were used to manipulate Illyana. Boom Boom shouts at Sunspot, "Hey man, remember me? We had that adventure together back in the Fallen Angels miniseries? That was fun, right?" And given that he's struggling to control a plane that he has never flown before, Bobby is like, "Yeah, good to see you. How do I do this?" Mirage uses her powers to manifest a head bandage for Rusty, stopping the bleeding. It also has the added benefit of making him look more superheroic. I don't know, dear listener, if you've ever seen Gambit in his full costume, but he has this, head sock on where it's one piece, leaving his face exposed, but with, an attached headband portion. Rusty is sporting one of those, but in the color red. As they're chatting, the two groups decide on a plan. The New Mutants are going to be on baby duty, saving them and disrupting the pentagram. The Exterminators will then save Takeshi and stop the computer. This should quiet all this stuff down. In Times Square, Nastier summons the magic computer to him, showing it off to Sim. He plops Takeshi down in front of it, planning a demonstration. The young man protests, and his chair starts to transform, but Nastier stops him. Using a spell, the demon envelops Takeshi in stone. "Crush him if you have to," the kid says, "but he won't help him anymore." Sim grins. He snatches a bird out of midair and infects it with the transmode virus. He explains the process to us, but what he's really doing here is reminding Nastier of his own powers. Sim has complete control of his abilities, and Nastier can't even control his little human. The big nasty then uses his own touch-based powers to take possession of Takeshi's body, forcing it to type the spell as he commands. He couldn't do this earlier because it might interfere with Takeshi's X gene, and thus somehow screw up the spell checker creation process. But now, the computer's here, and it works. He just needs fingers to type at those keys. When the spell is complete, a massive fissure opens beneath Sim, and he is caught in a geyser of flame. And this is but a taste of what Nastier can do, he gloats. As he revels in his newfound power, Takeshi concentrates. Maybe he can't completely override Nastier's control of his body, but maybe he can add a little something to the spell. One finger, using all of his concentration, taps on one of the keys, multiplying the effect of the spell tenfold. Now, 6 geysers of fire burst from the ground, catching both Nastier and Sim. The charred Sim barely pokes out from beneath some stone rubble. The techno-organic virus will repair any damage done to him. But you know, Nastier doesn't have that advantage. The big nasty does say that his magics can heal him almost as fast as the techno-virus, except for the drain that casting multiple spells has on him. He can't afford to fight Sim and keep control of Takeshi, so he'll kill the human. The stone that had wrapped around Takeshi's chair swells up around him, beginning to cover his face. Nastier is going to smother him. The X-Terminators now land, with Richter in the lead. He uses his vibration powers to shake Takeshi free, but the goblin hordes close in once again. Nastier and Sim have resumed their fight, with magical shields protecting Nastier from Sim's physically powerful blows. But the drain on Nastier hasn't stopped. If anything, the disruption of the pentagram, thanks to the New Mutants, is also hurting his own magical stores. The stone now rises up over Skids' force field and begins to swallow Boom Boom as well. Rusty tells her to try to blow up the computer, and so she yeets a small bomb at it. It bounces from one key to the next, to the final one, and then it explodes. The pressure from the explosion is just enough to depress the key and shatter it. This accidental spell causes all of the steam pipes in Times Square to burst, unleashing a cloud of hot steam into the air. Nastier's mind reels. He can appreciate the hell out of the computer and how effortlessly it can cast spells, but he can't touch it. He can't control it himself. Unless... Sim charges at him, eager to infect Nastier with the techno-organic virus and consume his life glow. This time, Nastier lets their hands lock together. He lets the virus infect him. Sim pushes him down, beginning to drain energy from his enemy. But no, that's not actually what's happening. Nastier is the one draining Sim. The purple demon is strong, but his will is not as strong as Nastier's. The demon is now a sleek red color and is emboldened by the energy that he's stolen from Sim. Remember earlier how Nastier was bringing inanimate objects to life? He does so with the spell computer now, and then uses the virus to absorb the spell computer. They basically become one, turning Nastier into a living enchantment computer. He is magic. But he is also machine. Takeshi's power affects machinery. He crawls to the computer as Nastier is absorbing it, reaching out so that he can touch it. He can return the computer to normal. He can stop Nastier, but doing so will cause all of the energy inside of it to just be set loose. Basically, the computer will explode, and Takeshi will be right there next to it. But after all of the terrible things that he has let happen, Takeshi has to stop Nastier. He turns the living circuitry back into its original form. Nastier is caught in that transformation. The resulting explosion blows a hole in the sky, and then it closes. The sky is normal. The portal is closed. We see a brief moment where the demon hordes seem lost. Without the portal, they can't return to Limbo anymore. They're stranded on Earth. And without Nastier, they have no orders to follow. They're lost and confused. Sim stands up, and then recruits them to his cause. The X-Terminators, on the other hand, rush to Takeshi's body. Leech and Artie are the first ones there. The glass portion of his helmet is shattered. His eyes are blackening already, and one of them is swollen shut. A bunch of scratches are littered across his face, and blood runs from his mouth. The New Mutants fly down, reporting that they've accomplished their half of the mission. They've saved the babies! But Takeshi doesn't hear this, thanks to being unconscious. As he comes to, his first words are condemning himself for failing to save the children. Tears stream from his swollen eyes. But Rusty assures him that's not right. They did it. They saved all of the babies, and they couldn't have done it without Takeshi. And he blew up Nastier, and he closed the portal. He's a hero. Takeshi says that, yeah, he always knew he was a hero. But then he smarts up and corrects himself. No, he isn't a hero. They all are. They did this together. Author Louise Simonson keeps this issue jumping, so I found it actually really hard to jump in with any breakdowns. We do get a short recap at the start of the issue, mostly up to the point where Crotus almost died, so Simonson does get the basics of what's going on across to us. She works it in easily to the narrative through natural questions that people would ask and things that the bad guys would answer. Nastier does have that villain habit of over-explaining what's going on. I mean, he is arrogant. Nastier thinks that he is the smartest demon in the room, and he is comfortable telling our cast basically whatever they want to know, because no matter what they learn, as far as he's concerned, he will outsmart them. It is a tried and true storytelling trope, and when you've been reading comics for decades, it can get pretty old. I do think that Nastier is one of the more successful examples of this trope, but, it happens. When the X-Terminators call the New Mutants demons, the Big Nasty goes on to explain that they're not. And that's probably the one single moment that I think Nastier's dialogue, in terms of explaining things, is particularly unnecessary. I mean, why would he correct this misconception? Nothing would change in our story if he didn't say anything. The X-Terminators never attack the New Mutants. They're actually pretty disinterested in them for most of the story, and are much more focused on saving those babies. So why not just leave the dialogue out and have the mutants prove their humanity when they side with the X-Terminators later anyways? I also can't say that there's much chemistry between the two groups when they meet. They're both pretty even-keeled going into this. There's no misunderstanding fight, thank God for that. And I like Tabby recognizing Sunspot. I am not going into the events of Fallen Angels here, but the nod to continuity is nice. I'm not sure if it helps the story at all, so this feels more like fan service than a legitimate story point. Both of the groups are responsible, intelligent, skilled, and have a lot of experience with pretty insane situations, so the two groups do team up pretty effortlessly. This is actually going to be contrasted really well with how things go down when the X-Men meet X-Factor again. Despite how necessary the hero's actions are, the heart of this story is really Takeshi. In theory, fans had been reading about the rest of the X-Terminators over in X-Factor's ongoing series for months, but Takeshi is the only character debuting here. If he's going to stick around, then we need to invest in him now. So Simonson gives us a pretty heartbreaking backstory where his parents abandoned him, his words, to a school. She gave him a bad attitude, which he can learn to overcome as the story goes on, with this ending demonstrating that he did overcome it. Takeshi found friends in the X-Terminators. He learned to trust and rely on Artie and Leech. Notice they are the first ones who rush to him after he is injured at the end, demonstrating that Takeshi, Artie, and Leech are now a kind of close-knit bond of friends. He's not someone picking on them anymore. He's someone who knows them and trusts them. Takeshi was willing to die in order to stop Nastier as well. He is absolutely a hero. So I'm a little bit amazed when I say that I kind of don't care. Simonson puts all of the pieces in place, but the emotional aspect of his journey just didn't connect with me for some reason. Takeshi's willingness to sacrifice himself makes sense, but Takeshi was also willing to spit in Nastier's eyes this entire story. I think that it would be one thing if Takeshi had submitted, or maybe willingly aided the big nasty at the beginning of the story, and then found his heart through his relationship with Artie and Leech, and then turned on him. I don't know if that would have helped. There's just no way to tell if a new character is going to connect with the audience or not. I do like Takeshi's power. I like his feisty attitude. I like representation for a Japanese-American character, as well as somebody who has a disability. I like all of those things, and some of that is stuff you don't really see in American comic books. But I don't really feel those things, right? If I have any complaint about this 4-issue miniseries at all, ultimately it's that. The story makes sense, it builds pretty well, all of the cast get moments to shine, and it's honestly pretty thrilling. The artwork, by the way, has really come together by the end, most likely since the story has kind of solidified itself in the realm of dramatic by this point. The comedy aspect is pretty much gone, and Bogdanov adjusts his artwork to match. He doesn't ever draw Sim with his vest on, which is a minor costuming complaint, but it is there. This fight isn't over, though. We need to move back to New Mutants for issue 72. We jump back a little bit in time for this one, picking back up where issue 71 left off. Nastier tricked Illyana into powering his spell, hordes of demons are flooding into Manhattan, and Illyana, now the Dark Child, with an E at the end, confronts the demon. He did, after all, betray her. But Nastier lawyers his way out of that. All that he promised her was power, and she has that. It just meant acknowledging the darkest portions of her soul. He promised her that he could get her friends home, and they are home on Earth. Maybe they aren't safe, but that wasn't the deal. And maybe things on Earth have changed thanks to the Limbo invasion, but he didn't promise that home would be as it was when she left it, either. He is, after all, a demon. If they want to talk about going back on deals, actually, then what about her? He asked her to accept her demonic power, and has she? Has she really? Illyana indicates her new demonic body, with goat legs, scales, fangs, thorn-covered horns, a snake tongue, and a mane of dark red hair. She certainly looks demonic. And the smaller demons around her bow and scrape, complimenting her new look. You look gorgeous, beautiful, we love it, what a makeover! Which is when Sim drops back in. He grabs Illyana by the arm, admonishing the demons for worshipping her, when he is the one who is the Lord of Limbo. Nastier swats Illyana from Sim's grip. By agreement, she is his! Sim bites down on his cigar. Their agreement is over with. His punch sends Nastier flying through the air, knocking him back. The sorcerer returns fire by blasting at Sim, but the transmode virus lets him shift his body, creating a hole in his chest so that the energy just misses him. But it lands near Illyana, and the blast launches her to the side. Sim then uses his virus to travel through the ground over to Illyana, and he reaches out for her. A stepping disc cuts him off, teleporting Illyana away. A bit of narration puts us inside Illyana's mind for a moment. She's always fought her own battles, and she's always needed to. When did she become this jewel in a crown? Her whole existence boiled down to signifying someone else's right to rule. When did she become a possession? When did she become a thing? The majority of this opening scene is Simonson getting us all caught up. While she wrote X-Terminators and the New Mutants to fit together, she also had to write them so that they could stand apart. Keep in mind that this comic event was published in the 1980s, and learning about a new comic being published wasn't exactly an easy thing to do. If you didn't see an ad for X-Terminators in one of the comics that you were already buying, then chances were good that you might not know that it was coming out at all, until you saw it at a comic store or on sale somewhere. So Simonson writes all of her comics as if you couldn't or didn't read the other parts of the story. In this opening scene, she basically has to pick up right where the last issue left off. She establishes Illyana's contentious relationship with Nastier, sets up the conflict between Nastier and Sim, and then ends the scene by introducing the inner struggle that this issue is going to be focusing on. Illyana has lost control of her life. She has become a victim of Limbo, not its ruler. But when did this happen? Is there anything she can do about it? Is she just doomed to be a soulless demon queen? Can she find a way to win this battle and regain her humanity? We do get some narration that tells us that Illyana's soul has shriveled up and pretty much died, and what that really means or what it feels like, I can't say. Illyana is clearly upset, but she's got a lot to be upset about. You can't blame her. The New Mutants, currently consisting of Cannonball, Wolfsbane, Mirage, Sunspot, Warlock, and Gossamer, have all pretty much been forgotten about. They're surrounded by demons, but Nastier and Sim are so focused on fighting each other that they don't tell anyone to get the humans, so they're all just huddled together in fear. Gossamer points out that some planes above them are messing with the pentagram, and Warlock shifts his eyes into binoculars to confirm. It certainly looks like someone is trying to disrupt it. Maybe they should help? Sunspot agrees, ever eager to just do something. Warlock expands his body, shifting into a big, bulky superhero form, like a caricature of a S-based superhero from another company, and he carries 3/5 of the team into the air. Mirage just hops piggyback onto Cannonball, and they rocket up into the sky. We do have a brief moment where Wolfsbane asks about whether or not they should help Illyana. She is their friend, and she's clearly suffering terribly right now. Warlock suggests that the magic of the pentagram is part of Illyana, so maybe if they disrupt it, the magic will return to Illyana's soul and change her back from being the Darkchild. Wolfsbane is down with this. If you couldn't remember the 15 minutes ago when I first told us, the New Mutants are rocketing off to help the X-Terminators, who are in airplanes that Takeshi created. Nastier's stepping disc then dumps Illyana out a few blocks away from his fight with Sim. As she lands, we see that the Big Nasty's spell has well and truly transformed New York. Every object is alive now. Sewer grates are gaping, steel-mouthed maws. Fire hydrants chase after dogs. Light bulbs have become eyeballs, staring at people. Umbrella handles are now faces and hop around. Even people are turning into monstrous caricatures of themselves. A large woman reaches through a window. She doesn't break the window, and I can't tell if it doesn't look like it was already broken at some point. She just reaches through the window and grabs Illyana by the tail and then yanks her back into the diner. Down the diner bar, nuns and priests jump into a meat grinder, turning themselves quite happily into a bloody milkshake. The waitress slams the bucket filled with the slurry, which is also alive, by the way, in front of Illyana, who has been forced to sit at the bar. "Eat up, honey!" Illyana is disgusted. How can they do all this? They were human once. They were better than this. Now they're all just monsters. The ketchup bottle suggests maybe she should use the sword on them. You know, if they're monsters, then they need to be killed, right? The salt and pepper shakers join in, encouraging her. "The sword! The sword! The sword!" But Illyana won't do it. This is her fault. She is the one who opened the portal. She is the one who brought the demons. If these people are monsters, then it's because she turned them into monsters. She summons a stepping disc and flees the diner. During our scene change, we get a brief interlude with the X-Terminators and the New Mutants teaming up. They decide to separate their forces, with the X-Terminator saving Takeshi and the New Mutants saving the Pentagram babies. This is literally the same scene that we saw in X-Terminators issue 4, but with different artwork, of course. The script is 100% the same, the actions are 100% the same, it just looks a little bit different. The main point of this is to break up Illyana's experience, because we go back to her. Illyana drops back out into the street just outside of a pet shop. But this wasn't where she wanted to go. She was trying to return to Times Square. The stepping discs still aren't obeying her. The fire hydrant then blasts her into the pet shop, saying that she's where she belongs. She's an animal, after all. Trapped in their cages, the monstrous pets inside all agree. She is the one who's dangerous, and she's a monster. Look at her. A tail, hooves, scales, horns. She's crazy as a loon, smart like a fox, mad as a hornet. They go on and on and on, their voices building to a cacophony. Illyana finally swings her sword around, smashing at their cages. There! They're all free, she shouts. Now leave me alone! But they don't. Instead, they close in, taunting her to use the sword, use the sword, use the sword! They force her into a cage. It resembles a bird cage, but just barely big enough for her to fit inside. Illyana realizes that they want her to use the sword. They want her to kill innocents and seal her fate in blood. This must be some part of Nastier's spell or his plan. If she can just avoid killing anyone, then she should be okay. She has to be okay. Illyana summons another stepping disc and teleports away from here. We get another New Mutants interlude as they save babies and fight demons in midair. These moments, like I mentioned earlier, are meant to break up the Illyana portions of the story more than they are meant to do anything with the mutants. Clearly, they are going to face danger, but we also know that they're going to win this fight. Not only are they the good guys, and this is American comic books, but we saw them succeed in X-Terminators issue 4. This is how we can tell that the interludes are meant to provide breathers between Illyana's rather intense, emotional moments more than move the New Mutants story forward. When we return to her, Illyana, still trapped inside of her birdcage, drops onto a red carpet outside of a bridal salon. The carpet flings her inside, right into a seat, and the cage shatters as she lands. The chair wraps its arms around her waist, and various beauty tools leap into the air. They're all spouting various quotes in regard to beauty, and the chair starts spinning. We return to the New Mutants, who continue their good work. As they disrupt the pentagram, Nastier's power is beginning to wane. This is when he comes up with the idea of becoming techno-organic and merging with his spell computer, but then Takeshi blows it all up in front of him. The New Mutants land and pass the babies off to the X-Terminators. Skids, Rusty, Mirage, and Takeshi all stay at a church with the babies in order to keep them safe and recover from their own individual wounds. It seems that demon claws are maybe tainted or infected with something, and so they are reeling from the effects more than they would be. Richter and Boom Boom volunteer to go with the New Mutants, eager to help. Sealing their fate. Honestly, the kids are all feeling pretty good. But then an entire building flashes to life, turning into a grinning demonic version of itself. But why, they ask. They broke up the pentagram, they destroyed Nastier's computer, and the big Nasty himself. Shouldn't his spell be dissipating? But remember, Nastier is techno-organic now, and despite being blown the floop up, his body can reconstruct itself from raw atoms. He's not quite alive, he comments, but now, Nastier is so much more than alive. Thanks to his bonding with the computer, his every cell is infused with magical power. And so the transformation spell has only gotten stronger as he regains his form. In the bridal salon, Illyana can't take it anymore. She breaks free from the chair, leaps into the air, and stabs her sword through it. She slashes wildly, cutting a hairdryer in two and slashing the chair even more. Bleeding, crying, the chair praises Illyana. Its master will be pleased. Actual demons now show up, loving Illyana's new look. She's gorgeous, they say. She finally stops and looks in a mirror. Black stars frame her yellow eyes, like the lead singer in an 80s glam rock band. Her hair is done up with hairspray, creating a red cloud around her head. 2 skull earrings dangle from her pointed ears. And keep in mind, this is the first time that Illyana has seen herself since she is transformed into the Darkchild. She could see the transformation to her body, sure, but seeing her face, her eyes, and they look like this? She cries out in horror. This can't be her! Ah, but it is. Nastier appears from the floor, his new red form matching Illyana's. He felt her shed blood. She has chosen to join him. Illyana scoffs. She killed a chair, not a person. And he told her that he would cede control of the stepping discs to her, but he clearly hasn't. He's just been teleporting her around, torturing her until she failed his little test. He grabs her arm and wraps a massive hand around her torso. The only reason that he still has control of the stepping discs is because she refuses to accept her own power. She's still fighting what she is. Give up. Give him the sword, he suggests quietly. Rule Limbo alongside him as his dark bride. Illyana grits her teeth. She has tried so hard to be good. Nastier smiles. Oh, my lovely Darkchild. There is no good in Limbo. All paths lead to greater evil. For him! Illyana rallies her inner strength, and silver armor snaps into life all over her body. She kicks the demon off of her and swings her sword wide. She does cleave Nastier in two, but he just laughs. Their union will be her choice. Maybe Sim's warm embrace will convince her of how much she needs Nastier. He fades away into the shadows, teleporting out of the scene. Illyana falls to her knees. God, she sobs. He's a monster. She is a monster. At least he's supposed to be one. He's a demon, after all. She was a human. What's her excuse? Sobbing, Illyana quietly asks someone, please, to help her. Standing nearby, leaning against the doorframe, is a grinning Sim. Emotionally, for me, this hits way harder than Takeshi's story over at X-Terminators. At its core, Illyana's part in this issue is pretty simple. She is being forced into situations that are meant to be stressful. Nastier is outright manipulating her, trying to get her to choose to be evil. Demons can tempt people all that they want, but a person has to choose to give in to those temptations. If the big nasty can get Illyana to kill these sentient objects, which are alive, even if they're evil, then it can't be that much harder to get her to kill a person. Illyana is clearly disoriented by all of this. She and her friends just survived whatever adventure they had come from. They landed smack dab in the middle of a fight for Limbo. Illyana witnessed the greatest hits of her emotionally painful childhood, and now she's in the middle of a demon invasion, and Nastier keeps poking her in the arm like a little brother on a car ride. I'm willing to commit murder when I hear a group of teenagers playing with Bop It at my paying job. How is Illyana still hanging on here? How has she not given into her anger, her fear, her panic? Because she's a hero. That's why. While she is facing the demons of Nastier and Sim, the real demons that she has to conquer in this story are the ones inside of her. And she is struggling right now. I also want to point out that Nastier is proposing to a flooping minor in this scene. He is evil, so him attempting to groom Illyana into his demon bride is on theme, but man, Oh, fuck
No swearing.
this guy. I would also like to commend the art team here before we go. As the Inferno spell effect has increased on Manhattan, things are getting crazier and it really does show. I just cannot convey through verbiage how much the art team has done to make New York seem like it is going mad all around us. Penciler Bret Blevins appears to be having a blast with the inanimate objects in these scenes. They look appropriately evil and menacing, but they're also kind of like fun and silly. Like you look at them and you're like, oh, it's a living sewer grate. That's not that bad. But then its razor sharp teeth clamp down on your ankle and you get it. It's a really strange balance, but the comedy parts balance the horror out really well. When those nuns and priests, for example, are diving into the meat grinder, it's a very cartoony image. It does not look like how the rest of New Mutants has looked up to this point. But I think that absurdity really helps sell how horrifying this all is to Illyana. It doesn't make any sense to her. It is so fast-paced, the mind can't help but reel from what it is seeing. I also really like Blevins' interpretation of techno-organic Nastier. He somehow seems even more monstrous, like almost gleeful in his transformation now that it has happened. And he should be. I mean, he gained all of this extra sorceress power. Casting spells is now a lot easier and faster for him. And other than his pentagram being disrupted, his plan is still kind of going well. Demons have invaded Limbo. Illyana seems like she's about to crack. And he has more magical power at his fingertips than he has ever had in his life. For Nastier, things are going pretty well right now. Next time, we will finish out this first wave of Inferno with a single issue. The New Mutants, issue 73. Don't worry, it is a double-sized issue, so there's going to be a lot for me to talk about. With the innocent babies saved, the New Mutants can now turn their full attention to finding and helping their friend. But how can they save Illyana from herself? Join me in a week for Comic Book Breakdown episode 24.5 of the X-Men's Inferno crossover, Illyana's Choice. Hey everybody, before you click off of this episode or whatever it is you do when you finish a podcast, maybe you just let it run to the end and let your next podcast start. That's what I do. Before you go, I just wanted to take a moment to say that this episode is the official 200th episode of Comic Book Breakdown. In theory, technically there's more episodes than this because there's a bunch of bonus episodes that I've done over the years or are just chatting series of episodes, which are kind of unofficial, so they don't really count. But in terms of episodes where I'm talking about comic books specifically for an extended period of time, this is episode 200. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for sticking with me for 200 episodes of this. The thing that keeps me going on Breakdown is that I really like doing this still. I like reading about comic books. I like writing about comic books. I like getting to explore these older issues that, you know, in Inferno's case, I haven't read these comics in something like probably 15 to 20 years. So getting a chance to sit down and reread it with a new set of eyes is just fantastic. I'm having a really good time covering Inferno and re-exploring this corner of the Marvel Universe, and I hope you folks are as well. I am sorry that episode 200 isn't, I don't know, a bigger deal, a grander plan, or something along those lines. We are in Q4 at my paying job, which does mean a lot of work all of the time. Nothing like what I faced last year, thank God. So I have been able to keep up with episodes, and I'm trying really hard to work ahead to get to a point where I can do something special. I've got kind of a crazy idea for something that I don't know if it's going to pan out or not, but I've got to do some more research on it before I can actually say whether or not it's going to happen. I'd love for it to happen, but we'll see. That'll be somewhere down the line, but again, I'm hoping to do something outside the bounds of the normal for Breakdown in 2023. And it's just a matter of whether or not I can put together the time to be able to do it. And we'll see. But I wanted to say thank you, and hope you all are still enjoying the show. Yeah, when I started Breakdown, I'd always hoped that, I don't know, I just didn't want to quit really quickly, you know? I didn't want this to be a flash-in-the-pan project where I did, like, Heroes Reborn and then maybe see how people would react and then, like, fizzle out. I didn't want that to be what happened, and it hasn't been what's happened. I'm glad to still be here and still working on this. And I just love it. So thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week with another episode, and enjoy the rest of your podcasting listening experience. Thank you. Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.